everyone, and welcome to the 15th episode of Talk Wildlife. Today's episode is a bit of a first for our podcast. Firstly, it's the first episode of ours not featuring co-host Kevin, just myself, Flo. And it's also our podcast's first ever interview. It took us a while to get to this point. I didn't feel confident approaching people at the very beginning of doing this podcast, but now feels like a good time to start doing interviews alongside our normal episodes. Today, I'll be speaking to Gary Hovell from the Lothian Amphibian and Reptile Group, aka LARG. He will be telling us what the group does, his role in the group, how you can get involved, and much, much more. Let's talk wildlife. Hi Gary, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I just want to talk about the Lothian Amphibian and Reptile Group, which I'll call from now on the LARG. So first of all, can you just briefly introduce yourself and the role that you play in LARG?
My name's Gary Hovell. I've been secretary of LARG. I've actually been everything involved with LARG since maybe 2009. It's a small group. I think the best way to describe it. So we've got a small committee, but I'm really the main one that does everything. The other group members just help out when they can. It's not like a really active group from the committee side of things. So yeah, I'm just basically secretary, chairperson, treasurer, everything.
Yes, I saw from the website that LARG was set up by a group of 15 people in 1998. So do you know what brought these people together with this passion to help amphibians and reptiles?
I think I wasn't there at the time, but I think it was just a couple, the 15 people that, just had an interest in it. I think some of them were actually consultants as well. And yeah, it just sort of started from there. Again, they didn't really use much social media then, or probably nothing at all. I still think they actually sent out like newsletters via the mail to some people. So it's hard to know actually what they did. I've heard bits and pieces and stuff like that, but I think originally they were mostly consultants, and then they're using LARG as a way to obviously get involved more.
So has social media helped to promote the group a lot more then?
Absolutely. When I took over the group, I think they were only doing maybe one survey a year, and that was it. It wasn't really that active. There was pretty much, that was it. It was just one survey in the middle of nowhere, which you couldn't even reach by car. So when I took over the group, I got the group on Facebook, on Twitter, and then eventually Instagram. Probably won't be a TikTok, but yeah, it's helped the most. I think with definitely Facebook at the time, before they got a bit greedy with their algorithms and stuff. We were able to promote the group to a lot more people. It's harder now because I think any post only goes to like 5 or 10% of the followers. But yeah, social media is definitely the way forward. I think people use it more now than actual websites. So I get most of my volunteers via Instagram, Facebook now.
So can you briefly remind us what the difference is between an amphibian and a reptile, since the two are often commonly confused?
Sure. So amphibians have sort of smooth, sort of sticky, moist, porous skin. Reptiles have dry, hard sort of skin. I think maybe scales as well. Amphibians lay their eggs in water, and obviously the reptiles lay their eggs on land or give birth to live young on land. So that's the sort of difference between them.
Do you want to give us an example of an amphibian and a reptile?
Amphibian, good example would be a frog or a toad or a newt, and the reptile would be either a common lizard or adder.
So why do you think that amphibians and reptiles are largely forgotten in the world of conservation compared with, say, mammals and birds? Do you think that people sympathise less with them?
Yeah, I do. It's kind of weird though. I think adults do. I think with kids go absolutely daft to see tadpoles, and they sort of lose that sort of interest. I think also mammals and birds and things, they're kind of easier as well. There's sort of more species. I think people obviously have more affection towards mammals from dogs and cats. But yeah, once you get some adults out and actually seeing the newts and the frogs and lizards, I think that comes flying, flooding back, and you get like the interest sort of comes back again. But I think it's not really something that you see a lot of now, as frogs and toads and lizards. So probably people just forget about them.
So I was looking at your website and the different projects you do, and one that I noticed and was quite interested in was the Lothian Toadwatch project. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how it works and what it aims to achieve?
Sure. So originally, there's been different people running the toad patrols throughout the UK over the years. Right now, Frog Life, the main ones, sort of driving it. But this was maybe going back 2009, 2010. I got an email just off this lady just saying that there's all these toads getting killed on this road in East Lothian, and could have come down and see it. So came down, and she had put up these signs everywhere. She was doing rural toad patrol, and she was rescuing in a sort of couple of weeks between 200 to 1,000. So we started to find ways to sort of help the toads there, and then every year we would go out and just sort of so just collect them with buckets and take them to the pond. And this throughout time, and this like social media again, people would tell me other locations that it would be. So there's a really big location at Arthur Seat where sometimes it could be up to like 500 toads a night, which is just an incredible sort of sight to see. But they're in a very safe location because the rangers are shut the road, and they put these sort of grates over the sort of drains so they don't fall in. And then, yeah, just throughout the years, I find more and more places, and then I just try to organize that. This year was really good. I got an interview from, I think, Edinburgh Live, and I got 18 new volunteers. But just as that happened, COVID happened, so we had to sort of stop just before the toad patrols. But I think every year I find a new location. It's basically anywhere that's got a pond near a road, you'll find them there.
I was actually going to ask how COVID's affected your group's activities. So have you held any virtual, solo or socially distanced projects or events since lockdown?
I actually had a meeting today for the first time, which was really good. I was out with, there's a place called Roslin in Midlothian, and there is a pond there that we occasionally do habitat maintenance with, and the local people want to set up a community group, and they are aware that we do the sort of dig up the pond. So they asked me to come around for a meeting today with the Midlothian Council and one of the rangers as well. So that was actually quite nice, just to do something. But for the past 6 months, there's been nothing. I normally do newt surveys in end of April, May time. All those were cancelled. We had started doing the toad patrol again. Some years it's earlier. It started March, sometimes it's in April. And this year, the toads came out pretty much a week before the lockdown happened. So we only managed maybe 4 or 5 sessions with the volunteers. So hopefully with the less cars on the road, that would protect them. But yeah, it's not been a great year. But hopefully next year, I've got loads of things planned. Hopefully we can get out next year.
Yeah, I hope so. So how often usually are your events?
Toad events, it's pretty much every night for me. I sort of coordinate it with like Facebook and email. I have up to, this year was 80 volunteers. Normally it sits around 40, 50, and it has to be weather dependent, so that it can't be too cold. It's like the best conditions probably if it's like 6 to 8 degrees overnight, a little bit of rain. So I'm basically gazing into my crystal ball, which is my BBC News weather forecast for the week, and then I try to figure out what day I think the toads will come out. It sometimes doesn't go to plan, where I have 10 volunteers come out and there's like 1 toad, which happened this year. Other years, you can get up to 500 in a night. So around about March, April time, I do the toads, and I can be out every night for 2-3 weeks. I look after a site in East Lothian at Binnon Wood. I try to get people from Edinburgh to look after places at Arthur's Seats and Blackford Pond. There's places in West Lothian. There's places up in Mid Lothian as well. So just whoever's like available. So I'll offer training beforehand. So around about March time, I probably won't go out in the night where there'll be toads, but just to show them what to do, high vis, torches, buckets, health and safety type stuff. And then they can just get loose, on doing the toad patrols. And then hopefully they tell me the results, what they've got and stuff like that. We have another guy that looks after a site near South Queensferry, and he works on a sort of railway line, and he collects them in the gully pots every day. So that's like fantastic data for us. And then once we finished that, we go into the newt surveys, so end of April, and that can be the torchlight survey, which is just done at night time, or we do a bottle trap survey, which is done over 2 days. So we put the bottle traps in overnight and then come back the next day and see what we've got. So it depends how busy I am. I have another job with LARG. I work as a nurse, so it can be quite challenging to fit it all in, but it does work. I do maybe 2 or 3 surveys a year, pond surveys, and the total thing can be 2 to 6 weeks.
So if someone wants to get involved, but they don't know anyone near them who's interested as well, after their initial training, is this something that they can do on their own in solo projects?
Yeah, absolutely. With the group, I don't charge for anything. I'd always sort of recommend to come along to get some training. So if they want to do the toad patrols, I would recommend they come out and see how we do things. Again, just go through all the health and safety. And it's a location I've not been to. I will go to that location and train them there. I had somebody from Lone Head that wanted to be shown certain things, so she wasn't able to make the training, so I was able to do it like virtually, which I wasn't too keen on. But so yeah, that sort of thing. And if they want to survey ponds, again, I would sort of send them or ask them to come for a training session, or even we could survey the pond with them. So yeah, I'm pretty open to things, and again, I just refuse to charge for training. I think it's anyone keen to be involved with amphibians, reptiles, it shouldn't be charged.
Absolutely. So does your group have any specific aims each year or as a whole?
Again, it's really just me that runs it. I'd love to have more people involved in the group, but it just really depends on my workload, to be honest. So I recently returned to an older job. I work as a nurse. I was working in the wards for a couple of years, and it was really difficult to get the time off that I needed. But my current job gives me every second weekend off, so it's really good. I can plan ahead. I can plan for next year right now, and yeah, that's sort of what I do. So I always try to do 2 or 3 surveys. I work closely with the Wildlife Information Centre based at Vogrie. They do all the records for the Borders, Lothians, and sort of the Stirling area. They normally have 2 or 3 sites that they want to be surveyed, so I work with them. Occasionally, I get Mid Lothian Council or East Lothian Council asking to survey a pond with them. So I try to always do a joint sort of survey event. But every year the toads always go ahead, but I can never tell what time of the year in March or April it will be. Occasionally in the autumn I do habitat maintenance. So we've got 3 locations in the Lothians that we go to. I'm trying to find more. So we just pull up the dead sort of plant life and try to keep the ponds open. And that's about it really. And I haven't really mentioned about the lizards and adder surveys, but they're quite challenging to do just because of weather and location. So I don't really do them that much. is mostly the amphibian side of stuff I do, but I'd love to do more of that, and I'm hopefully next year I'm going to try to do more with the lizards. I think that's my big goal next year.
Do amphibians and reptiles have any sort of protection legally to prevent their habitat being destroyed for, say, development?
So the great crested newt, the natterjack, and I think the marine turtles are protected under European protected species, and I think everything else is protected under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, I believe. It's fairly, so I think you have to get a license for newts, and if there's developments, a license for great crested newts. It's different from Scotland than it is in England. You have to, for Scotland anyway, you have to get 2 references and these sort of things to get that. I think all animals are protected, but it's just the level that they're protected with. So if there's a development, you'll find that a consultant will go off and do a habitat maintenance like survey. They'll look at historical records. If there's great crested newts there, they will probably do like a little survey and then put out pots and newt-proof fencing. Over the years, I do have people trying to stop developments. They ask me to try stop the developments, but it's not really my remit to do that. I think most consultants are really good and they do their job in a thorough way, and they have everything in place to protect them. So yeah, there's a few bits of protection out there for them, but not great. And I think I don't want to go into this too much, but I think with Brexit, that there might be changes to the laws, maybe more in England, to get away from some of the European protected stuff.
You mean in a negative way, it will be damaging to the amphibians and reptiles?
Yeah, I think it will be. I think reading in the press that as it Boris and Rees-Mogg were complaining about newts stopping development, so they were thinking of changing the laws and stuff like that. And the thing is that they don't stop the developments; they slow it down, and it just gives the consultants and the people doing stuff on the land more time to protect it. So there might be talk of them cutting that sort of red tape and sort of going ahead with it.
That's quite worrying, and it links me on to what I was going to ask next, which is, how do you feel that things have progressed over the years? Do you think things are more hopeful for amphibians and reptiles, or do things seem worse?
I think yes and no. If you look at some of the journals and stuff, I think we'll just say the common toad population has decreased by, I think it must be a 50 to 70% in the past 20, 30 years, which is, there's a sort of, not like a joke, but they say they should no longer be called the common toad or the common frog. It should be called the rare frog, rare toad. And that's just due to new housing developments, or land being sort of dried up, and so no more ponds left. And this is why we try to do as much habitat maintenance as we can. But now there's, again, with more knowledge now, some of the developers are putting in things to help wildlife. So with even with the new builds, they put these sort of ponds. It's like an urban drainage thing. I think it's suds, I think. So these places have ponds built in there. They are now putting in curbs, which are sometimes no curbs. So basically what happens is the frogs and the toads and the newts are going to the breeding pond, and they can't go over the curb because it's too high for them, and they follow the curb and they end up falling into a gully pot and they end up drowning. The gully pots are like an absolute massive, pretty much a kill pot. It's not only amphibians, it's small mammals, birds, insects are found in them. So they're changing those as well. Smaller curbs. So there's some good and there's some bad. But I think the more people know about it, the better.
Definitely. If you find a species of amphibian or reptile, how do you record them?
There's several different ways, but I'm going to promote our thing called the record pool. It is it's an online thing. It's got this sort of location. You can select it and what species you thought you saw. Gives you opportunity, I think, to take a picture, to upload it. And then, yeah, you just sort of do that. And I'm one of the people that review the information. So if somebody says they found an adder in, say, Prince Street Gardens, I would know that's not quite right. But if they said I found an adder up in the hills, I could sort of believe that. And then I can sort of approve that sort of record. And that just sort of builds up a bigger picture. There are different groups have different ways of recording. But again, I'm promoting the record pool. And that's just a sort of a nice, easy way of just documenting what you've seen.
Are the records then used for anything?
They can be used just to sort of see patterns. Right now, Scotland isn't greatly recorded. There's a few species that we're trying to get a bit more information about, especially like the adder. So yeah, just any sort of more sort of data, the better. Again, eventually, I think the information goes to the national record centres as well. So it does get shared in the long term.
Since beginning your work with LARG, what has been your favourite moment?
Well, I think my volunteer's favourite moment is when I fell in the pond a couple of times. I don't know, it's nice to... I always enjoy the toad patrols. That's when there's up Arthur's Seat, when there's 500 toads in one night, and like the adults who seemed a bit sort of, I don't know, grumpy at the start, in the typical adult, by then we're just having so much fun and being like kids. I think that's also a sort of highlight. But I've been doing it for maybe 12 years, and I think the main highlight for me is just I've met some really nice people through it.
That's great. Is it kind of like a sense of community within the organisation?
Yeah, it's good. It's you do meet some interesting people. I think it's more sort of introverts that you meet. They're just really sort of passionate people. There's a lot of people that like nature but don't come out and volunteer. But it's, I focus on the students. We have a lot of retired people as well. And there's also people that are really into like dragonflies, and they'll use like our survey to go check out ponds. So yeah, but you see the same people every year, which is nice. And yeah, it's especially when you go to the big meetings. There's normally like they call it the HARP workers meeting. It happens every year, and there's all these talks and sort of things, and it's really good. And you just basically meet like-minded geeks.
What is it that fascinates you about amphibians and reptiles, and do you have a favourite one of either?
I don't know. I think when I started to the group, I like old nature, and I was doing different voluntary things at the time when I was a student, and I was doing like badger stuff and bats, and I think I was doing some volunteer work at Edinburgh Zoo, and I saw a little flyer for LARG, and I sent them an email, and I think it must have been about 6 months later I got a reply, and then I think they just saw that I was keen just to be part of the group, and then that's how I started running the group. So I never really had a huge interest in amphibians and reptiles, but obviously over the years now, I just think they're fantastic. But yeah, I think my favorite, probably a frog actually. You don't see them that much. I see mostly newts and stuff, but I do get, especially doing the toad patrols, you might only see 2 or 3 frogs at a time, so I'll go for frogs.
Is the reason you like frogs because you don't see them often, or is there something else about them that you like?
I don't know. I don't know. They're just cool. Again, there's another species that is also it's an invasive species. It's the alpine newt. That's in a few locations in the Lothians, and it's just got a beautiful color to it, and it's nice. Well, I like seeing them as well. I mean, I very, very rarely see common lizards or slow worms. even adders. So I think I'd be more excited to see those, but I still get excited when I see a frog.
Are there any common myths around amphibians or reptiles that you'd like to dispel?
I think the usual thing is like people think toads are ugly. They're not. They're cute. And I think this also even if you just Google adders Lothians or adders Scotland, it's all negative things coming up, and um, you know, we're encroaching on their habitat. You know, it's not their fault. You know, I think it's the main one is this like that sort of the persecution of adders. Really, they're really fascinating to see, to watch, and just their whole like life cycle and all that sort of stuff. And I think people are scared of snakes, and they shouldn't be. I think with adders, they'll hear you before you see them, and they'll disappear. But yeah, I think that's probably the worst one, where I think maybe sort of landowners will kill adders, and yeah, and the press will make up a big news story if there's somebody being bitten by one. Yeah.
Certainly my experience of adders, that they just disappear before you even really notice that they're right in front of you. Is it because people fear them that they get persecuted?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's strange, especially with landowners, because they're good pest control. It's weird, even with buzzards and these, they'll kill them, and it's probably because of maybe the birds that get, the grouse and stuff like that they might kill those animals. But yeah, it's strange. Everyone I speak to is absolutely terrified of adders, uh, but they shouldn't be.
So if someone listening wants to get involved with LARG, what is the best thing that they can do right now to start off?
They can send me an email. I'm sometimes not the best at replying, uh, but yeah, it's just to send me an email, and then I just, depending on the year, I get a lot of people send me emails in autumn time, and we're not doing anything for pretty much 6 months. So I think it's hard to keep them motivated and stuff like that. But yeah, just an email. Either contact me through the social media, or just the email, and I'll reply back, and then I'll just give you like the usual sort of spiel reply and all the things that we do. And yeah, that's it. Again, for my group, I don't charge anything. All training's free. All events are free. I just like people to come out and have fun. And you can go to one event a year, you can go to 10 events. I'm not too fussed, as long as you enjoy yourself.
That seems like a really good opportunity for people who want to get experience in that sort of area to get experience, because it can be so hard to have any sort of experience in the animal field because it can be quite competitive. So the fact that you offer free training sounds really, really good.
Yeah, it comes from experience. I remember when I was a student, and then I'm not going to name the groups, but some were a bit elitist. Some didn't offer lifts. Some, I would say, were ageist. Didn't like anybody, retired in the group. So yeah, and you pay a membership fee, and only certain people were allowed out. And I just used that as a template not to be like that. And I have a really wide range of people that come out, and some people I get students that come out, I get consultants that come out, I get retired people, I get the curious people, I get the odd people. um, just whoever wants to come out. Then you also get the people that uh, do education, environmental education. They come out just to get some bits and pieces. So I just open up to anyone. There's not like a competition for me or anything like that.
That's good. So you were saying a minute ago how this time of the year or the second half of the year is a bit quieter. So are your events pretty much just the first half of the year, or spring and summer?
Yeah, that's it really. This time of year, really there's nothing much I can do from June, July, August, and September time. I think it's still not good to do any sort of pond stuff at the height of summer, because the type of bottle traps they could probably kill the newts and stuff like that. So And I think most of the time the breeding season is in May, so that's the best time to do the surveys. You can still do netting and stuff this time of year. You would find a few things, but I don't really bother with that. And then I could do lizard surveys in August, but again, I just sometimes need to take a wee break from it as well. So I mean, we're planning on doing some pond maintenance next month at Roslin, and that's just gonna be over a couple of weekends and stuff. And um, most people don't come out for that one, but then yeah, it just depends on what type of event it is. So if I was to say I was going to do a great crested newt survey, which would prick up everybody's ears, I would get a lot of interest in that one, or an adder survey. So it depends on what I sort of advertise, but it's mostly March, April, May is my busy time.
So it sounds like those are the months that were worse affected by lockdown, which sounds quite typical.
It was absolutely typical. I was not surprised. So um, again, it was just really frustrating. I actually had a couple of students, well, one student in particular, making a documentary about the toad patrols, and I thought this was a great way to promote that type of thing that we do. And then the getting the thing in the paper, getting 18 new volunteers to help out was like fantastic. And then suddenly COVID just, I just wasn't surprised. But next year.
Yeah, I hope lots of people come back next year and maybe use the ability to meet up with others again to drive them on to do more with the group.
Yeah, again, it's just a voluntary group, so it just depends on. We're nothing without the volunteers, so yeah. I mean, I'm hoping to go back to the universities and encourage them to come out. The past few years, it's been really strange. There's been less students coming out to volunteer, where I think maybe 10 years ago there was loads, and it's just really strange now. Like, that sort of stopped, and then I'm just going to try get some sort of like local groups as well out. And there's a pond near where I live. I live in Dunbar, and there's a pond there, so I might contact the local people there just to get them interested.
Do you have any idea why fewer students are interested?
No idea. It's a strange one. Yeah, when maybe about 2010 to 2013, 14, I was getting 30, 40 new volunteers a year from different universities. Some universities keep things in-house now. I know University of Edinburgh does that. And so they do their own little thing, which is, yeah, it's good to network. And one of the things I say to any sort of student out there is speak to everyone that's at, doing the survey type stuff. You'd be surprised who you meet and who's out. For my group, we have a lot of, I would say, quite high up people in different areas of nature and conservation. And I remember one guy got offered pretty much a job as a consultant because he came out and helped at a pond, and he just, like, obviously, just impress someone. So it's kind of, I always tell the students, come out, speak to people, network, and you'd be surprised who you meet.
That sounds like a great opportunity to network and meet other people who are interested, and it's amazing how someone actually managed to get a job out of it.
Yeah, no, it's he still comes out and volunteers, so it's great, so it's, I don't know why the students aren't doing it at the moment. It's a strange one, because I think it's not what you know, it's who you know at the moment, and definitely with conservation and nature, it's that type of thing. So again, this is another like benefit of the group, because in my group there's people that are just really like into like dragonflies and snails and these sort of things, and just by chatting to them, they're so friendly. They'll take you out and basically train you up in their spare time, and just to get that sort of knowledge. And then, yeah, just there could be people in the bat groups and stuff like that. So if you're looking for your bat license, and there could be someone in my group that's quite high up in that sort of thing, and then it's just to get your foot in the door. And yeah, it's strange. And I've get some volunteer students that come out, don't speak to anyone. I think it's more because they're like introverts and quite shy, but I'll normally sort of nudge them in the direction of who to speak to. So yeah, it is interesting, but this for next year, I'm definitely going to try get back to the universities and actually just like do the legwork and get them out, or even try organize a training session for them or something like that. I don't know.
Sounds really cool. Is there anything else about LARG that you'd like people to know?
I don't know. Again, it's like I said, it's just a voluntary group. There are people that just like amphibians and reptiles. That's it, really. And again, we get no funding. Everything's sort of, I've got the equipment and stuff, so yeah, we don't get any funding. So, some people think this is my full-time job and I get a wage, and it's not. And yeah, it's just meant to be like a fun group and stuff like that. And but yeah, there's nothing really much I think to say about the group. If people are interested, then also we've got the website and stuff, and if there's other people around the country, there's different. So LARG is part of Amphibian Reptile Group's UK, ARG UK, and there's different ARGs around. So there's a one in Tayside called TARG, there's Fife ARG, FARG, Clyde ARG, CARG. You can see a theme here, can't you? And then there's so many, there's probably about 50 down in England as well. So if no matter what part of the country you're in, you can sign up and join up to these groups. But some of the groups they work closely with different nature groups. So the group I'm with, the ARGs, it's all voluntary based. There is Amphibian Reptile Conservation, who get government funding, and there's also Frog Life, who get also government funding. So different ARGs work with different groups. So it's quite interesting. There's a bit of politics as well, which I won't go into, but from my point of view, I'm happy to help out Frog Life and Amphibian Reptile Conservation if they need any sort of help. So there's a definitely, once you sort of step into like the sort of amphibian world, it's very interesting, and there's some really nice people.
Imagine. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for taking part in the interview. That was the last question. So yeah, you've answered all the questions amazingly and been really informative. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much. Enjoyed this.
I've put links in the description which you can follow to find out more about this great group. And if you want to get involved, please do email Gary at the email address lothianarg@outlook.com. That's LOTHIANARG@outlook.com. Please do consider getting involved. The fact that you can do counts entirely on your own after having received the initial training means that this is a fantastic opportunity to get out and about and help nature, whatever phase of lockdown that we are in. And if you have flatmates or a family who live with you and can go too, then you can get them involved.